Tonight, the Phantom Stranger shows us the true meaning of the word apathy. Superboy literally cannot go one issue without getting into another crossover, and just what the hell is a black diamond anyway? All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 58 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and before I get into anything deeper, a little personal thing, forgive me if I'm a little bit slower to talk, a little bit lower energy. I, as I've said last week, have had major dental surgery, and I've actually had to wait until the day before this episode's supposed to go up to record this, because I have had a complete swelling of my jaw up until today, so yippee for me. I am still in an incredible amount of pain, but I am working through it for you. Mostly for me, but partially for you. Anyway, let's talk about comics. The comics that are coming out this week, we got 14 of them, and they start with the number 13 issues of Batman, Batman and Robin, Batgirl, Superboy, Green Lantern Corps, Deathstroke, Grifter, Suicide Squad, Legion Lost, Demon Knights, and Frankenstein. Additionally, we have the number 5 issue of the Ravagers, and the number 1 issues of the Phantom Stranger and Team 7. Mind you, last month there was a 0 issue to that, so make sure to check out that before you see the issue number 1 this week. But even with all those comics, that is not the most insane thing going on. The most insane thing is how many goddamn events we have going on. We have the Batman event, Death of the Family. We have Frankenstein being a Rot World tie-in. We, of course, have Green Lantern Corps as the Rise of the Third Army going on. And Team 7 and Demon Knights both start an event called the Black Diamond Probability. And boy, oh boy, do I have a rant for that. Make sure you stick around to the Team 7 section to hear about the Black Diamond Probability. I will not say it again here, though. Whew. Anyway, we can go ahead and get into comics. One last thing, just wanted to bring up. I got a new chair. It swivels. For anybody on audio, it makes no difference. For anybody on video, I might do this from time to time, where I just go back and forth. Please excuse that. I have to break that habit. Anyway, let's talk about some Batman. Batgirl number 13, written by Gail, Simone, art by Ed Benes. This is technically a prelude to Death of the Family, but only in the most superficial way. So we open up last issue, issue 12, we had Batgirl fighting Nightfall. She got stabbed in her side and is seemingly bleeding out. And this issue picks up with her bleeding out. And she's like, I see different colors and that's not normal. And so Nightfall standing over and being like, your bat people have let Gotham turn into a rat hole, and now I'm here to fix it. You're the problem. I'm here. I'm the solution. So she's just taunting Batgirl as she's standing over, and she's like, okay, well, you know who I am, but it doesn't matter because I have won. I've defeated you. Ha 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 ha. So she steps away from Batgirl, still bleeding out on the ground, calls for her henchmen to come and get rid of the body. But of course, Batgirl finds that little bit of extra fighting spirit, and they go and have a big old punch-out fight. And Batgirl's like, okay, I gotta take her down real quick, because otherwise I am actually about to die. So let's just get this over with. And we see that during the fight, James Gordon Jr. is watching through, I guess, the security cameras. Sure. And he's like, oh, Batgirl, I almost can touch you now. So at this point, Batgirl's like, take off the mask, Nightfall, I know who you are. And she's like, fine, okay, here's who I am. And here's my tragic backstory. And I don't know if you remember a few issues ago where it was like, yeah, no, she definitely killed her whole family. Turns out she didn't. So what actually happened was, her father was, of course, super rich. And to be that super rich, he did some scummy things. But she eventually got into a relationship with this guy named Trevor. And Trevor seemed super cool because he didn't care about Daddy's money. He liked her for her. But as it turns out, that was all a ruse. And he was the one who actually killed her entire family. And he, like, strapped her down and forced her to watch as he murdered all of them. And apparently he didn't do it, like, to get the money. He did it because he genuinely believed that much money only makes you evil. So he did it in his own weird, self-righteous way. So anyway, she broke, and basically Batgirl was like, okay, so what happened to Trevor? And he's like, oh, Trevor? Yeah, well, I didn't report him to the police, so that way I could have my own way with him. And it turns out that the other dude in the cell in her office with, like, stitched up eyes and mouths and all that, that's Trevor. She's been torturing him for years. And Batgirl's like, Jesus, okay, so why did you go to Arkham? He's like, oh, I went there in order to learn. Like, I was surrounded by all the greatest murderers and horrifying people that I could ever hope to come with. And I learned how to do these horrible, horrible things. So, yeah, that's my story. And so at that point, Batgirl's like, okay, you've got your own little monologue thing going on. I'm bleeding out. I'm just going to go. I'm going to take Ricky, the guy I came here to save, with me. And also, I'm going to take Trevor. And immediately she lashes out and goes after Batgirl's like, no, you can't take Trevor. He hasn't suffered enough yet. So fight continues on, and Batgirl's like, I'm genuinely about to pass out. This is not going to end in my favor. Until Ricky grabs one of Nightfall's punches, I guess, through the bars and holds her still long enough for Batgirl to just lay in a bunch of sucker punches that you can't defend yourself from. So Charisse is knocked out, and Batgirl's about to pass out as well. And she's like, okay, Ricky, let's get you out of that cell and you can help me out of this building. But at that point, Batwoman and the detective, who I completely forget, Miss Carnes, that's it. No, Miss Carnes is the other, Charisse's name. I genuinely forget the name of the detective. But anyway, they're like, okay, well, let's all get out of here. And it's like, what do we do with her? And it's like, she's arrested. The cop is going to arrest her because she just admitted to all this stuff. And she's like, oh, well, I'm rich. I'll be out by morning. And Batgirl's like, yeah, and I'll be ready to fight you again. And then we see her in her monologues like, I mean, I hope. Yeah, I'm hoping I can do that. So anyway, a few hours later, she's all stitched up via some back alley surgeon or whatever like that. Her roommate comes in and says like, hey, that's weird. You gonna tell me what that's about? And she's like, nope. Hey, that looks like a cat I used to have when I was a kid. She's like, yeah, its name is Alaska. And she's like, wow, that's the same name as the cat that I had when I was a kid. That's weird. So at that point, she gets a call from her mom, and her mom is just freaking out, saying how she can't get a hold of her dad, and they're right outside the door. And at that moment, the prelude to Death of the Family comes in as Barbara's own door, the mother's door, my bad, gets knocked down with an axe, and as it turns out, it's a bunch of clowns, like Joker goons, outside, and it looks like they're about to reenact Killing Joke. And then we get, 2 days later, inside Blackgate Prison, Bellerive Prison, and Arkham Asylum, where the first three villains of this series, Mirror, Gretel, and Grotesque, are all being talked to by some mysterious people who are basically saying, hey, we'll get you out of prison on one condition. You have to kill Batgirl. And we see that the three people doing this are the three goons that Nightfall hired. Bonebreaker, Bleak Michael, and the one with the wings. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so as a prelude, a tie-in, whatever you want to call it, to Death of the Family, that's useless. Like, this was, I know I put, like, the banner or whatever, but it's not. So, whatever. As the end of the Nightfall arc, I guess it did give me the twist that I didn't see coming, in that she didn't actually kill her family. Like, she wanted that person to suffer bad enough that she became a killer herself. So, it's got something there. I think it definitely would have done better if it didn't have to pause for that Zero issue last month. If it just flowed right along, because it did definitely feel like, oh, we're building, and now we're doing this other thing here, and now the finale. It's like, it just didn't quite work there. But overall, I guess this would probably be, it's like a 6.5. It's good. It's not great. It's just kind of a thing of like, okay, this person who didn't actually really end up doing anything, she tortured the guy who murdered her parents, and then mutilated this one other guy. And that's it. That's all she ended up getting done. Kind of a lackluster group overall, but it is leading to bigger things, so I'm at least interested to see where that goes. But next up, Death of the Family, so we'll see how that turns out. Batman number 13, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. This is part 1 of Death of the Family, the Joker-centric storyline in the main Batman book. So we open up with a van driving into Gotham City, and there's a whole bunch of narration over the top, basically saying how there's been some creepy stuff going on, like it rained hard enough to actually reverse the direction of the Gotham River, and there was a lion cub born with 2 heads recently, and it's just kind of crazy stuff going on. And we see that this narration is coming from Detective Bullock talking to Jim Gordon as they're just up on top of the roof of GCPD. And they're like, yeah, there's a lot of superstitious stuff. Whatever the next thing that's going to happen is, it's going to be big. So we better be prepared for that. And we find out that Jim has been holding a bet with his fellow detectives to find all of the places where he stashed his smokes over the police department. And he apparently was surprised that they found literally all of them. There's only one place back at home where he keeps his smokes that is left for him, in an attempt for him to quit. So the van pulls up to outside the GCPD and a foot steps out of it, but then we see inside everyone's just going about their daily business as the lights kick off. Emergency generator kicks in and Jim's like, all right, everything's fine. And as he looks towards the door, he sees the Joker. He sees him standing there in the doorway. And then the lights go back off again, and Joker starts telling a joke to each of the independent detectives. Like he says, like, all right, well, let's start with you. And as he makes the joke to each one of them, they keep on saying, like, screaming, no, please, no. And he's like, oh, what's the matter? You already heard that one? And then he snaps their necks. And finally he makes his way to Jim. And he basically tells him, like, hey, look, I'm not here to tell you a joke. I've already told you plenty of jokes. I'm just here to get my face back. So then he tells him how the pack of smokes thing, he's like, oh, yeah, that's right. Your last pack of smokes, the one you keep under your mattress. I know, because I spend many a night there listening to you sleep. And so he's sufficiently freaked out, Jim, but at that point, the lights kick back on, Joker's nowhere to be found, and Batman's there. And he's like, where'd he go, man? What happened to him? And they look and see that the face is gone from the vault where it was being kept. So at this point, Bruce makes his way back to the Batcave, and he's talking with Alfred, and it's basically just like, yeah, he's been gone for like a year. That's a long time for him. I don't know why he was out, but now he's made a big dramatic return. But either way, I can beat him. This isn't going to be a problem. And Robin's sitting there listening, saying like, oh, well, you know, he's an old joke. Like, he's nothing to worry about anymore. He's clearly worn out his welcome. But why did he wait a whole year? And Bruce is like, I don't know, still working on it. And then they go through the whole family. They got Nightwing calling in, Red Robin calling in, Batgirl calling in. Batgirl's especially pissed because she's like, why didn't you tell me that he attacked my dad? And he's like, I thought your dad would have told you. Sorry, it's not my place to share. Anyway, at that point, a news broadcast starts kicking on, and we see that it's been hijacked by the Joker, and he's doing that thing where, like, it's Joker's arms, but somebody else's body, so Joker's just messing with the guy, but he's wearing Joker makeup, and he's reading off a teleprompter, basically saying that by the end of the night, the mayor's going to be dead, and he pulls out a gun, holds it to the guy's who's giving the message his head, pulls the trigger. And it turns out that facial recognition says that's John Claridge, who is the son of the very first guy the Joker ever killed. And he went on TV and said that this guy's going to die by midnight. So for some reason, Joker's reenacting his very first crimes, and Batman doesn't know why. And everyone on the call is like, hey, do you want help with this? And he's like, no, I got it. It's just Joker. So cut to the mayor's office. Jim's already set up tons of security. And the mayor's like, hey, look, no one's getting in or out of this place. Can you all just, like, equip yourselves outside my office? And Jim's like, yeah, sure, all right, but I'll be back in, like, 5 minutes. So he goes to the elevator, and Batman's already set up shop there. And he's saying, like, look, I've run over this place. Everything's clean. There's no way the Joker's already been inside the mayor's office. And we're keeping good track of it. So I don't think that he's already done anything, but we'll keep an eye out for it. And we see that Batman's just working through it, thinking through, like, okay, why would he be doing this now? Why is he reenacting his former crimes? Like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden something clicks and Batman's like, crap, he's doing something else. So Batman runs out, and it turns out that the mayor wasn't actually the target. It was everyone else. And all the police officers that Jim brought for security have been attacked by Joker toxin, where instead of making them smile, it's making them frown. And they run a chemical test on it, and turns out that it's a Joker toxin they've seen before, or at least a variation on it. But there are 3 extra chemicals in there that they're not familiar with, or at least don't have any purpose in the Joker toxin, and that's aspirin, ethane, and chlorine. And rearranged, that's ACE, Ace Chemicals. So Batman goes to Ace Chemicals, and standing there is Joker in his Red Hood outfit. And he's like, oh, isn't this just the perfect place for us to start all this again? I'm the Red Hood, and you'll dunk me in the acid, and we'll do this all over again. And at that point, he lays out his whole thing where he's like, Batman, here's the thing. You used to be strong on your own, but you're not anymore. You rely on too many other people. I'm going to take that away from you. I'm going to make sure you have no one left. So that way it's just going to be you and me doing this again. And so as he attacks Joker, a giant mallet comes down from the ceiling, knocks Batman into one of the chemical vats. Joker slams the lid shut and then starts filling up with chemicals. And turns out wasn't actually Joker inside the Red Hood outfit. It is actually Harley Quinn, and Joker's just using a radio inside the helmet. And so he calls up, he's like, Harley, tell me where Joker is. And Harley's like, yeah, he's not the same Batman. He's changed. He's different now. He's not Mr. J anymore. And then we cut over to Wayne Manor. Alfred hears a scratching at the door. He opens it up, and he sees that little 2-headed lion cub that I mentioned before is outside. And as he turns around, he sees Joker's there, and it was all just a ploy. And Joker now attacks Alfred with his own face strapped back onto his skull, and he attacks Alfred with a ball-peen hammer. And that's the issue. It's a dense opening issue, I'll tell you that much. I really do enjoy it, though. I think that it sets up a good thing of like, okay, here's what Joker wants, here's the levels that he's going to get it, and he's going absolutely crazy, like super dark over it. Yeah, no, it's just a solid opening to the Death of the Family storyline. Can't say it really faltered on the art at all either. Nothing really stood out. There was, I think, the one panel of Joker stepping out of the van, because all you can see is his ankle and like his shoe, but it's just enough that you're like, oh geez, something's about to go down. That's probably the most standout art moment. But overall, great story. I'll give this one I'll give it an 8, because it's still building. It's just setting things up now. It's still building up, but it is very, very good. So if you haven't checked out the storyline, definitely worth looking into for now. Green Lantern Corps number 13, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Carlos Urbano. This is the first part of the Green Lantern Corps side of Rise of the Third Army. And we open up with some space miners riding an asteroid back home. And they're just talking about their jobs, saying, oh, we're going to be rich after this score. And then all of a sudden, one of them starts freaking out because of an attack from behind. And his head is like throbbing or whatever. And they all start shooting at things. And we see that it is the weird alien-looking things of the Third Army. And they are attacking this group of miners and transforming all of them into more Third Army members. And yeah, it's just quick and painless. Well, not painless, very painful, but very quick transformation as they all fly off and discover more people. So then we cut to Oa, where the subcells exist, which are like high security, solitary confinement cells separate from the science cells. And one of them is broken open by a green light, and a guy inside named Czar is revealed inside, and he apparently is very, very, very against Gardner. aka Guy Gardner. And it's like, hey, Czar, up and at him. So speaking of Guy, we then see in the Hall of Great Service that Guy is basically being officially promoted to that new role of Lantern Sentinel, where he's just one step above all the other lanterns. And they're just recounting how great of an awesome lantern he is, how he always does the right thing and always puts himself out there. And he's being marked down in the Book of O as his own specialty role. And he gives a short little speech saying like, oh, I'm proud I can do this for my corps and blah, blah, blah. So they're immediately given a mission of there are 2 warring planets, and they've been warring for centuries, and they've finally decided, okay, ceasefire, we're going to have ourselves a peace talks, but we need the Green Lantern Corps to escort each of the different diplomatic groups to Oa to have these peace talks. So they're in charge of doing that. And Guy selected his crew that he wants in order to do this, including John Stewart. But John gets called back saying, hey, we need him for something special, so he can't go. And Guy's like, all right, well, John, you stay here, bye. So we see what John was called back for, and he goes up to the Guardians. And apparently, before the New 52, earlier in Jeff Johns' run, during Blackest Night, John had to destroy the living planet Mogo, who was a Green Lantern. And they found some shards of Mogo that they thought were just floating around in space, but it turns out they were actually doing an Iron Giant, where they were all converging to one location, and they were trying to like rebuild Mogo. And so they figure, okay, well, we need to help them because Mogo is like a super asset to us. So we want you to go find the place where they are all coalescing. Like, go find where Mogo, like, soul is, and then we can help them along however. And John's like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally wanting to make up for blowing up a planet. That's kind of a thing I want to do. So all of the lanterns arrive on the planet Ronos to pick up the diplomats, and they're providing the police escort more or less. And one of the guys there is Vandor, aka the guy who John escaped with during that first arc. I think it was the first arc. And he's basically just saying like, yeah, John did what he had to do. We've all been through some major shit with that, but hey, it's behind us, and now it's an honor to try to break him out with the Alpha Lantern's last arc. So we're just learning about Vandor because nothing bad's ever going to happen to Vandor. So anyway, Guy gets a call that Czar has escaped. And he's like, Czar's escaped? That guy who totally wants me dead? He's going to go after me. Or worse, my family. I gotta go, man. So he talks to the diplomats. He's like, look, I'm leaving behind 6 veterans. They're all going to take care of you. They're going to get you to Oa so that you can do your thing. But I got to take other 6 of them with me to Earth to protect my family from Czar. Okay, cool, bye. And the diplomats don't like this at all. And I guess they call up the Guardians. And the Guardians call up Guy. And they're like, hey, Guy, get back to your mission. He's like, sorry, no can do. Got to go protect my family. And he's like, your dude, you're on a mission. We just promoted you. Don't do this, man. And it's like, you're asking me to choose between the Corps and my family. I'm going to choose my family. And they're like, we expected better of you, Guy. And he's like, why? I've never done anything to prove that. Peace out. I'm going to Earth. So they hang up the call, and then all the Guardians are like, wow, that was very predictable. We all knew he was going to do that, right? Cool. Hey, Czar, you can do your thing. Kill all the diplomats, please. So they're all flying to Earth. They've finally reached like Saturn. And as they're approaching Saturn, they're attacked by the Third Army. More specifically, Vandor is attacked by the Third Army. Who would have thought Vandor was actually in trouble here? So they all start trying to blast him, and it's not doing anything. Vandor's got a shield up, but it's very quickly crumbling. And eventually, the shield breaks, and they immediately tear off the hand Vandor wears his ring on, which means no more constructs, no more power. And Vandor's begging to be killed before they do whatever they're going to do, but it's too late. They officially turn Vandor into part of the Third Army, and now the rest of them have to fight. So the first part of the Third Army thing, not counting the preludes, was Green Lantern 13, and it was more so focused on Simon Baz is the new Lantern. And I felt that was a very poor opening to the event because it didn't feel punchy enough. This felt punchy enough. This should have been like the first instance of like, okay, now we're seeing what these guys can do. The body snatching, the transforming, horrible mutating. Love it. Love it all. Fantastic. Guy's whole thing of, put between a rock and a hard place immediately and then just thrown into this event. Again, fantastic. He's being put through the ringer immediately. I like pretty much everything about this issue. The only thing that seems weird to me is this. I don't think they really set up the whole, oh, hey, remember how Mogo was a thing? Because for this entire series, he hasn't been. Like, this is a pre-New 52 thing, and I would have liked a little bit of more seeding on that in terms of just allowing me as a reader to become familiar with it before they're like, oh, by the way, this is what John's going to be doing now. Okay, bye. Just a little weak, but the rest of the issue is strong enough, more than enough to make up for that. So overall, I'd say this is I'm giving this an 8.5. I really do enjoy this issue, and it really, in terms of the 2 out of the 4 Green Lantern books that I've read the Third Army stuff in so far, this one's got me the most pumped up. I think this one's going to be the more interesting one. But hey, it could shift, and we still have 2 more books in the Green Lantern corner to cover. So this one's good, though. Team 7, number 1, written by Justin Jordan, art by Ron Frenz and Jesús Merino. This is part of the Black Diamond probability. Now, I've said this stuff before, but I'm going to say it again. I don't know what that means. There are no in-house ads for this book. There is no collection of Black Diamond probability. There is nothing that tells me the issues that are technically a part of this, save for Wikipedia, and I don't know where they're getting their information. So this event, as far as I can tell, barely exists. So I actually reached out to Justin Jordan, the writer of this book, and I figured, hey, your issue 1 is part of this event. That must mean it does something with it, right? What was the plan for this event? And he got back to me and he said, I genuinely don't recall. I have a vague recollection that I suspect may be entirely wrong, that I wanted to do Eclipso. By the way, spoiler alert, villain of this book is Eclipso. And it ended up being a vague crossover, but causality might go the other way. I do know that I never read or was even told what the other crossover stuff was. So the author of this book, where his first issue is part of this crossover, doesn't know what this crossover is. And I'm coming in 10 years late. So anyway, on to the issue itself. It basically opens up on a recap of the whole team again, just in case you didn't read issue 0. I'm not going to recap them all again. And they are tasked with going to this big floating prison, like up in the sky, floating prison, and it's there because they figured they could keep metahumans there. But as it turns out, something got out, killed everybody in the prison, and now they have to deal with it. So they approach and they realize that they are going to be shot at because that prison, of course, has its own defenses, and the pilot, Summer, is doing all these dodges and stuff like that, but they end up getting hit, and so they have to all parachute out, and, well, I say parachute, they literally just have to jump out of the plane onto the, as they call it, the float. So they all jump out, and Kurt Lance, aka Dinah Drake's boyfriend, or maybe husband, I can't tell at that point, he ends up tumbling off. He was falling off the float. He doesn't stick his landing. And a guy named James Bronson, I believe it is, he jumps off after him, and he's in basically like Iron Man armor. He grabs hold of him, saves his life. And James is just a nice guy, but then there's Deathstroke, Slade Wilson, who shows up and he's like, yeah, you should have probably just died because you're going to be a liability otherwise. So either learn how to do things right or stay out of the way. And Waller calls him out on being, yes, Amanda Waller, calls him out on being a total dick about it, but she stands up for her team, tries to keep everyone together. And so, yeah, they are then like, okay, what do we know about the float? Who's our enemy? And Waller's like, I don't know. They didn't really tell us anything. We are just to get in there, defeat the enemy, and take back the float. So they're trying to like figure out some way to get in. They're like, okay, well, maybe we should just shoot down the prison. Maybe we should try to find an entrance. Maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that. And while they're debating, Cole Cash, a.k.a. Grifter, he just walks back over because he's the wild card, and he just blows a hole in the thing and jumps in. So they're all inside, and they see the place is a bloodbath. And all over the walls is some writing, but it's like ancient text, like pre-Sumerian writing. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. They hear some noise nearby, and they all surround it, kick off the cover that was covering it up, and it turns out it's like a nurse or something, and she's just freaking out. She's like, oh, please, help, oh, God, it was horrible. And it's like, oh, it's civilian, don't worry, man, we're heroes. And immediately the nurse is like, heroes? Oh, that's good, I like killing heroes. So then she gets this blue mark over half her face, and she gets this creepy smile. She starts attacking the team, and she's got some pretty fast moves. She attacks Bronson in his Iron Man suit and seems to actually do a little bit of damage. But as he throws her off, the entire team has guns trained on her, and they just all open fire and knocks her out, no problem. But then they're like, okay, that was a bit too easy. She definitely isn't the one who did all this. And then rumble, rumble, out through the doors crashes the seemingly entirety of the float has been infected with whatever this is, and they're going to attack Team 7. It's the Black Diamond. It's Eclipso. I'm not keeping that in the bag. Again, it's a loose event, so I'm not going to judge it off of event standards. It's so loose of a crossover, it's not even a thing. In terms of this specific issue and just starting off the team, I like it. Last issue, I don't feel like gave me enough of the actual personalities of each of the people. I mean, sure, there was Black Canary, there was Deathstroke, there was Grifter, and there was Amanda Waller. All people that we're already familiar with. And so I could get their personalities from what I know about them. This one did a better job of me like saying like, okay, Dinah always cares about Kurt. That's her weakness. James Bronson, he cares about other people and just saving them. Deathstroke's much more utilitarian. He doesn't, if you're not useful, then get out of the way. Waller's trying to keep the team together. Like, it gives a good thing of how they work together in this team, like what pieces they each make up. In that regard, I think it succeeded. I don't think it did enough to set up the plot as a whole. I do think that probably too much of this issue just recapped stuff that should have been covered in the Zero issue, but I understand that, you know, people see a number 1, they may hop on even if they didn't hop on for the Zero issue. So it's kind of a necessity even if I don't like it. Overall, though, decent issue. Not great, just decent. So I'll give it a 6. I will say that I think it does have a voice. I just need to get more of it in order to feel like whether or not I actually like it or not. So 6 for now. Looking forward to what comes next, but I promise you I will not rail about the Black Diamond probability all the time. Demon Knights number 13, written by Paul Cornell, art by Bernard Chang. Last issue we left off with the group being betrayed by Etrigan, because, yeah, why not? So this issue picks up with Jason Blood seemingly showing back up in his own body, and he's like, Etrigan, oh Etrigan, what have you done? Why are all of my compatriots' clothes here singed and burned? This is, oh crap. So he tries switching with Etrigan again, and he's like, oh wait, this doesn't work anymore. You've broken the curse, Etrigan, and you've taken all of my friends to do it. How dare you? And at this point, we see that Lucifer is watching on, and he's like, wow, yeah, no, he totally did it. Anyway, hey, Etrigan, so you gave me your comrades. That's cool, but you promised to give me Avalon, which is kind of a little bit different. And Etrigan's like, don't worry, I have a plan. And Etrigan's like, yeah, okay, cool. Or it's not Etrigan. Lucifer's like, yeah, okay, cool. We also have the body of Merlin down here, but this isn't a cemetery, and he's like, this is just a body. This isn't even a soul. And Etrigan's like, don't worry, I have a plan. And Lucifer's like, also, we have some horses here and a Pegasus. This is not a stable. And Etrigan's like, don't worry, I have a plan. And Lucifer's like, yeah, no, you got a plan. I get it. Yeah, no, great, cool, awesome. Here's the deal. I'm the one who broke your curse. Like, I'm the one who made it so that Jason Blood can't summon you anymore. If you don't get your plan done in like one hell day, which we get no conversion to that of human days, but if you don't have it done in one hell day, I'm putting the curse back on you. So hurry up with it. So then we just see what everybody's personal hells are, because of course, all of the demon knights being in hell, they have to be tortured in some way. So we open with S.H.A.D.E, who their torture is that they are in a wedding, and they have to choose whether they have a bride or a groom. And that's it. That's the torture. They basically have to say whether or not they are male or female. Then we go to Al-Jabir, who is in hell, and he's just looking out over a canyon, and he's like, now wait a minute. I was a man of faith. I believed in God. I wouldn't be going to hell. And Demon's like, yeah, you're probably right. This is probably an illusion. You want some gin? And he's like, no, that's against my religion. He's like, well, it's an illusion, right? You can have some gin and an illusion. It's also the only thing you can drink down here. So then we go to Vandal Savage, who is being strung upside down and like stabbed repeatedly, which seems like the most normal torture. But then it turns out that the people stabbing him are all of his bastard children that he has just left about the countryside. And they've all been pulled from life in order to torture Vandal. And they give him the out. They're like, hey, here's a list of all of your misdeeds. If you read it and sign it and admit to all of it, then we will stop torturing you. So then we get to Horsewoman, who gets the most pages of just a flashback, basically, of the day she became Horsewoman, where she's out in the field with her family. Some battle was going on nearby, and then all of a sudden the entire army is like moving in the direction of her family. Her family are immediately trampled, and she has a horse stomp, I guess, on her lower spine, which paralyzes her. And so she just has to relive her family dying. But then as Horsewoman watches, she's like, yeah, this dream again. Okay, yeah, I've been through this. Whatever. So then we get to Exoristos, who her torture is that she is literally like steps away from setting foot on Themyscira again, but can't. She's being held back. And Lucifer even comes up, and he's like, geez, okay, yeah, you're, this is really unoriginal. I'm sorry, yeah, no, this isn't creative at all. This is clearly a thing that would torture you. If you promise to like just, if you want me to even, I'll just change up the torture to something more inventive. And then Lucifer starts talking, saying like, here's the deal. Yeah, I'm letting Etrigan do his thing because his plan could work out for me either way. But I have my own plan going in the background. And he reaches in back pocket and he's like, this here's the Black Diamond. Oh, yes, the Black Diamond. And you are going to take this and give it to some soul that can do something. Honest to God, the plan didn't really make a lot of sense for me. He just says, I've been looking for a soul who has issues with the people of Earth, who in return for their freedom might be willing to deliver to that world the promise of greater entertainment. So it just sounds like he wants this Black Diamond to end up in the hands of somebody who is going to use it for evil. And it doesn't actually say what he wants Exoristos to do, but she's like, okay, I'm listening. So then we cut back to Vandal Savage, who is reading through the list of stuff that he did, and he's like, oh, yeah, I remember. I sacked Rome. That's right, I did that. That was hilarious. And all the kids are like, so yeah, you have to own up to the fact you did this. He's like, dude, I totally own up. I'm sorry, do you think that I feel bad about this? Nah, I'm Vandal Savage, bitch. And he just tears up the list and tells them that they can keep on torturing him. He doesn't care. So then we go to Madame Xanadu, who has essentially been brainwashed and taken all of her powers away, at least seemingly. And Etrigan is talking to her because she's basically his servant now. And Etrigan's talking to her saying like, hey, isn't it weird that even down here in hell, Merlin's body hasn't decayed at all? I think that means he still has a link to Avalon. So is there any way we can exploit that? And Xanadu's like, me don't know, me dum-dum, me can't think about none of that. I exist only to serve you. And immediately Etrigan's like, well, maybe we could change something. Maybe we could make that different. So then we come back to S.H.A.D.E, who is currently fighting off all of the demons that were in their wedding. And Sirius's like, oh, you don't know who I am? Let me tell you who I am. And one of the demons goes to bite them, and immediately they just burst into flames. And it's just like, that's right. I drank from the Holy Grail. You can't touch me, bitches. So immediately Sirius goes out and saves what appears to be Horsewoman and several other friends as well. And Lucifer's looking on like, huh, okay, well, that's a thing. If Etrigan's going to do his plan, he's going to have to go and collect all the Demon Knights again. So that's fun. And then we cut back to Jason Blood, who's like, well, if I can't have my friends back, then I'm going to come down to hell and I'm going to punch you in the face, Etrigan. And he's willing to do it via suicide. So he's got his knife to his throat, and he's like, I'm coming, Xanadu. And at that point, he's approached by the questing queen and her lackey, whoever that guy's name is. And she's like, wow, this makes things difficult. I mean, I was going to threaten you to bow before the questing queen, but how am I supposed to do that if you're going to kill yourself? This is a tough one. And that's where we leave off, of him being surrounded by the questing queen. I like it. I think it's a solid thing. Once again, the Black Diamond probability rears its ugly head. I knew this was a part of it going in, but at the same point, I was like, this is the first time I've actually seen the Black Diamond. So now, at least now I know what I'm looking at here. Yeah, no, it was a solid issue. It was setting up just, here's the team, here's what they're all going through, and then we've already established how they're getting out of it, because Sir Euston is able to push through it because, hey, Holy Grail equals torture proof. So yeah, no, I'm down on this book. I really can't fault it for anything that it's been doing here. I do think that Bernard Chang, I believe, is on art. Very good. Does a great job. Not quite up there with Diogenes Nevis as the earlier arcs were. Those were fantastic. This is a little bit down, but still good. So overall, I'll give this issue I'll give it an 8. I really did enjoy it. I think it was a solid issue overall, and I am looking forward to seeing how it manages to continue forward if we're even doing anything with the Black Diamond, really. Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E, number 13. This is written by Matt Kindt, art by Alberto Ponticelli, and this is a tie-in to the Rot World arc going on in Animal Man and Swamp Thing, where Frankenstein's just kind of doing his own thing on the side. So last issue we had Frankenstein leading an army of ex-S.H.A.D.E agents out of the Leviathan graveyard, which in itself was confusing, but hey, we got there, and he no longer trusts S.H.A.D.E like at all. This issue picks up with Father Time and the other scientist dude basically being like, hey, Frankenstein, we know you're not really talking to us right now, but some really bad stuff is happening and we really need your... And then the feed goes dead, and immediately Nina is there like, I've never heard Father Time really plead for help on anything, and also I've never had the line go dead before. That's weird. And then all of a sudden, all of the ex-S.H.A.D.E agents start turning into these horrific, like, beast-looking things. And Frankenstein pulls out his sword. He's like, all right, Nina, everyone, just get out of here. Just bail. And we see that the thing turning all the monsters is Victor Frankenstein, the guy who turned Frankenstein himself. And he thought he was dead, a la the Zero issue, but it turns out that Victor did die 100%, and he washed up on the shores of the Amazon forest. And as he died, he was absorbed by like the grass and the ground and all that, and he realized that there was the green and the red, and they were both fighting over his soul. And he looked at them and he was like, both of you are too weak. I have no interest in being part of either of you. And he managed to leave. But then he came across Anton Arcane, who told him about the Rot. And the Rot sounded right up his alley in terms of working with dead things. So he decided to join that. And he'd said that he destroyed all of his technology, all of his stuff, except for the Soul Grinder, which he very purposefully disassembled and left in multiple different locations. But either way, now he's part of the Rot, and he's here to take out Frankenstein because he realizes, hey, I know I can't kill you, but I can kill literally everything around you. And he starts like rotting away the inside of the Leviathan they were riding in. So at that point, the Leviathan breaches above the water. Frankenstein guides it up to a shore, and they start making their way out along with all the people who didn't transform, I guess, but I didn't see any of them before, so I don't know what's going on there. So Father Time clicks in for a second, just trying to get some more info across. Doesn't really come through. And then some condors start circling around, and he's like, that's weird. They don't travel as a pack. And then the condors come down and literally grab Frankenstein and pick him up and carry him away. Frankenstein starts slashing at them, and he's like, hey, chill. We are part of the Red. We are part of the welcoming party. We need you to help us out. And he's like, well, you left my friends alone. And they're like, we don't care. We really need you right now. Okay, let's go. So drops him down in Metropolis. And it turns out Metropolis has already been completely zombified. Like, everyone there is just rot. And so he starts slashing his way through, going through. And they keep on trying to turn him. And he's like, don't you understand? I do not rot. I do not decay. I am Frankenstein. Rah. And as he makes his way through the city, he comes across a horse. And the horse is like, hey, I'm another member of the Red. I'm here to guide you on to the next part of your journey. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. So making his way on horseback through another horde of the Red, or of the Rot. And he comes across Velcoro, the vampire one. He comes across him, and his wings are like completely torn to shreds, and he's barely holding his own against the Rot. And so he saves Velcoro, puts him on horseback, and basically they're just like, all right, here's the deal. The only way we can beat him is apparently if we reassemble that soul grinder thing. But apparently when he disassembled it and put it into multiple different places, he covered them and like protected them with things called colossi. So that's an issue. So we're going to have to get through the colossi. But another issue is that the ant farm, aka where S.H.A.D.E is kept, which is a tiny little ball that just floats around the world, immediately after Victor was done with Frankenstein, he just kind of like booped his way over there and killed everyone in S.H.A.D.E. So all of S.H.A.D.E is dead and destroyed. And the only ones left now are seemingly Frankenstein and Velcoro. So yeah, no, it's a big start to the whole Rot World thing. I do think this benefits the Rot World arc, whereas those two start in the future where they already have lost. This tie-in is showing the like, okay, here's how the fight happens. And I'd be curious to see if by the end of this, whether they do a thing where Frankenstein does technically win, or whether it leads into that future of them being dead. You know, it's either, and I'm curious to see which one we go for. So overall, though, this issue kind of comes out of nowhere. But it's not in a bad way. I mean, this whole series has just been a thing of like, and then there's this crazy thing over here. Can we go deal with that? So it doesn't feel unearned. It just feels like, and then the Rot thing happened. Where it's like, yeah, no, that would be a thing that just happened randomly one day to these guys. So I'd give this one a 7.5. I think it does a good job of keeping up the previous pace of the Frankenstein series while also coming to this big event that it can tie into. And it has a story to tell on its own as a person, as a character who is neither alive nor dead, and how it fits into this circle of life sort of thing. So 7.5, definitely liking it. Batman and Robin number 13, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason and Tomás Giorello. This is set during Death of the Family, but doesn't actually interact with it yet. So we have Damian asleep next to his dog Titus, looking over some Joker case files, when Bruce comes in, wakes him up, and immediately Damon freaks out. He's like, what, is Joker, is he attacking? And Bruce is like, no, good job staying up to date on him. That's very good. But no, we had to go take care of something. So they hop in the Bat rocket, as far as I can tell, and they launch up into space. And it turns out that there is a solar eclipse going on today. And because of that, the satellites that they use in order to keep track of things via whatever, it sometimes gets a little bit screwy with the different like gravitational whatevers. I don't think that's a thing, but regardless, they have to go up and they gotta carefully just nudge it back in the right direction. And during this, Damien and his dad talk like, hey, did you, like, love my mom at some point? And Bruce was like, for a moment there, I think I did. Do you still love your mom, Damien? And she's like, no, she put a $500 million bounty on my head in Batman Incorporated. There's no way that I'm coming back from that. But yeah, whatever. So they come back down to town, and basically Batman gives them the key, saying like, yeah, bring it back into the cave, and Alfred will take care of it. I gotta meet up with Gordon because apparently the crazies are out, considering there's an eclipse. So we see somewhere in Gotham there's some cult that is called the Saturn Club, and there's literally on their floor just a giant painting of that one, like Saturn devouring his son. You know that painting? It's horrifying, and it's here. So Robin returns home. Titus wants to play with him, and he's like, no, I have to go out. I have to go do something. You stay here, Titus. So he hops on his motorcycle and heads out. Meanwhile, Gordon wanted to talk to Batman because apparently an entire row of graves in a cemetery have all been busted open from the inside. There are zombies in Gotham, and we see that the groundskeeper has been attacked, but not until he hit one of them with a shovel, so there's some tissue samples that they can find. But regardless, he's like, okay, this is something, James, but this isn't supernatural. Like, there's evil out there, but this is human done, and we'll get to the bottom of it. So at that point, the eclipse is over, and he's like, all right, well, let me know what you get and see it around tonight. So down in the sewers of Gotham, we see that Robin's got a metal detector, and he's just going around trying to find something. And he manages to find it, and as he's down there, he gets attacked by this giant fish frog monster thing who hears about the bounty on Robin's head and wants to collect. So he starts attacking Robin. Robin picks up a rat and throws it at the guy, which bites into his tongue. And then he basically just beats the guy up, tasers him, and leaves him there in the sewer as he leaves. So Batman gets over the comms and says, hey, Robin, why are you not in the caves right now? I thought that we established that you would stay in the caves while this bounty's out on your head. And he's like, I had to go do something. There's crazies out there. You said it yourself. So at this point, he gets out of the sewers, and he sees an entire horde of people all just chanting, eat to live. And they all look zombified. And they're all coming after this one woman who's very, like, freaking out that she's trapped in there. And so Robin blows up a water tank to try to get rid of all of them. Some of them are still latching on, though, so he jumps into the fray. But as he tries to get the woman, he loses his balance, and he is also brought down into the zombie horde. And it seems there's no way out. How can he possibly survive? So first thing I want to mention is the art shift. Patrick Gleason and Tomás Giorello have very, very different styles, and they didn't even attempt to blend it here. Like, they are just completely separate. You flip the page and it's just a totally different thing. I don't dislike any of their styles independently. I think both of them work in their different way. Gleason, because I've been used to it this entire series, and Giorello, because it is actually very well done art. It's not bad in any regard. But comparatively, the two of them beside each other, like, it's a shift. So a little docking on that it's just such a major change. And it happens at such, like, technically it happens when the zombie attack starts, which I guess could be, I don't know, a good change. But it actually, I feel like, happens a page too early, because it's this page of him talking to Batman first before we actually get into the zombie attack. So a little iffy on that. Writing-wise, it seemed a little bit haphazard, honestly. You get this whole thing with just, oh, we're just casually taking the bat rocket into space, and then also zombie attack. It just seemed a bit scattershot of, we had this cool idea of, like, oh, an eclipse and this other stuff and all those cool things. And I'm sure it'll tie all together. I'm not worried about that. It just does seem for now very scattershot of, like, okay, fine, I guess. So overall, it's a little bit hit and miss of an issue. I don't dislike any individual part of it, but as a whole, it just has a bit too much going on in every regard. So I'd give it I give it a 6.5. I think it's fine. It's not great. It's just too much going on. And hopefully next issue, I haven't actually checked how many artists are on that, but hopefully it can be a little bit more focused, at least. Superboy number 13, written by Tom DeFalco, art by R.B. Silva. Last issue I can't remember and I don't care. So this issue picks up with Superboy waking up with a gun to his head, or like a super futuristic looking blaster. And immediately he flips over and telekinesis sees them, and then, a big fight breaks out. It's Jocelyn Lure. If you don't remember who that is, it is the detective who has been keeping an eye on future people and Superboy as well, because reasons. And they have a whole thing here about how it's bad manners to wake someone up with a gun to their head. Like, it's witty banter, but it's like weird that they're doing it. But anyway, Jocelyn's there, and she puts Superboy into some handcuffs that not even he can break, and basically tells him, like, hey, I've been keeping an eye on you, and I hope that you were staying out of trouble, but here we are surrounded by pallets upon pallets of money that you've stolen from the bank. And he's like, oh, I was going to return that as soon as I just paid for some stuff. And it's like, you're still stealing. You're still stealing here. So we need to have a talk about you being a criminal and whatnot. You're going to set up trouble in my city. I'm going to be the one to keep an eye on you. So then Superboy seemingly flies her away somewhere. And genuinely, I don't know why. Like, they just fly and then they just end up somewhere else. And basically Superboy's like, hey, where'd you get all that tech? Are you working with Nowhere? And Lure's like, you would have figured that out a long time ago. No, I'm not. And it's like, okay, well, here's the thing. I just want to have a normal life, and that's all I want. And she's like, well, here's the thing, Superboy. With great power comes great responsibility. I'm not kidding you. Like, that's almost the words she says here. But either way, they come to a deal where Superboy will help her out with her thing, so long as she can help find Caitlin Fairchild, a.k.a. the one scientist who helped him, because she just disappeared without a trace after the culling. So we go to elsewhere, and now I'm remembering last issue. You remember how that psychic tried to attack Superboy, and then she got put catatonic? She's still catatonic, and it turns out that someone, I don't know if we have his name, is basically trying to get to that Dallas Sorrentino woman, aka the one that has the hots for Superboy. And she's like, well, if she has someone protecting her, I think it's time I met this person who's protecting her. So send out the retrievers. So then we see Superboy meeting up with Dallas. And Dallas is like, hey, by the way, let's never talk about last issue ever again. Okay, cool, got it. By the way, I need some rent money. So can you give me rent for this month? And Superboy just gives her a giant stack of cash. And she's like, all right, well, let's go hit the town on this money. So they head out into town, and she sees a bag that she really, really wants. So she goes in to buy it with the new money that she got. Meanwhile, Jimmy Olsen shows up because I guess there's been rumors that there's a Superboy in town, but no one's ever seen him. So Jimmy's here to get the scoop on behalf of Lois Lane. So meanwhile, we see Jocelyn is doing some research into where Caitlin Fairchild could be, as well as having a screen that has Superboy, Kid Flash, and Legion Lost all pulled up on it as people of interest. So Superboy is approached on the street by some guy who pulls out a gun and says oh, if someone wants to meet you, I suggest you come along quietly. And Superboy just crushes his gun and be like, yeah, it's not really a thing I do. Also, your hair is stupid. And the guy's like, that's uncalled for, man. So fight breaks out between him and two other random guys, one of whose name's Streak. And so they all start fighting Superboy. And Superboy gets really pissed off really quick. And he's like, I am not here to fight, but I will if I have to. And he freaks out and starts throwing the guys around. Police, of course, see the whole thing. They come against Superboy because, like, oh, hey, that's the kid who threw that whole fight in Times Square on New Year's Eve. Should get him. And they all start firing on him. Superboy uses his powers to literally stop the bullets midair. And then we get another page of some mysterious figure who we haven't seen before saying, oh, that's the House of L on his chest. Oh well, don't have time for him now. I have to find the son of Jor-El first. And then it says tune in to Superman 13. By the way, this issue has no less than 5 editor's notes saying, hey, check out this issue if you don't remember this thing. That's too many. Too many callbacks. But regardless, Jocelyn hears that, Superboy's causing ruckus downtown, so she gets her gear on and starts down. And then we see that Dallas sees the fight going on, realizes that Superboy is a meta, and then doesn't interact anymore. But she just says, oh no, he's one of them. So Superboy unleashes his full power. He blows back some cops and cops' cars. Jimmy gets the shot and she's like, Lois, he's real. I have pictures. And she's like, oh my God, is Superman keeping a secret son? And as the cops are all like, oh, geez, he's so powerful. Smoke starts filling the area. We see it's smoke bombs. And Jocelyn's the one who threw them, waving to Superboy like, hey, get over here. You have clearly caused way too many issues. But I found Caitlin Fairchild. So how about we both do us a favor and get the hell out of here and go to Caitlin. So they go through a teleporter that Jocelyn just happens to have. And on the other side are the Ravagers and Caitlin Fairchild. To be continued in the Ravagers, and I think also Legion Lost, but not issue 13 of Legion Lost, possibly issue 14. I don't know. It's confusing and I don't like it. That's not fair. I think this issue was okay in it's trying to set up that Superboy has a temper problem, but this literally was wrapping up like 3 other plots, one of which it told us just to never mention again, but clearly we're going to come back to it. Then it's doing all the Legion things. It's doing the Teen Titans future thing. It's setting up for something in Superman. This book is not allowed to tell its own story. It is here solely to tell the stories of other books by having Superboy be the link. It was that way with Teen Titans and the culling, and it's that way now with whatever's going on in Superman. I think that is Hell on Earth is going to be starting next issue, I believe. Regardless, this book does not have its own story. It is completely subservient to the whims of other stories that want to tie in with it. And as such, it's nothing. It's a big nothing burger. So overall, I got to give this one like a 5. I don't hate any part of it. And if it had some substance to it, I would give it something. But honest to God, this is just nothing. Nothing to latch onto at all. So hopefully it's better for Hell on Earth. Deathstroke number 13, written by Rob Liefeld and Joshua Williamson, art by Eduardo Pansica. This is a quick one because it's literally just an extended fight scene. So we open up, there's some chaos on the highway, and Deathstroke's like, man, all these low-level goons think they can come at me, Deathstroke, and they'll end up dying, because I'm not going to die to anybody but the best. But this guy who's attacking me, aw, geez, he might just be the best. And we see it's a guy named Deadborn, sure, and they just keep on fighting on the highway until Deathstroke's like, okay, I need to put a little bit of distance between me and him. So he hops on a motorcycle that already has a rider and just steals it as he tries to drive away, and Deadborn takes another motorcycle, and it's like, boy, how did this all happen? Flash back to, I guess, 10 minutes earlier, probably, and Deathstroke is lying in bed with Zealot from last issue, or I should say 2 issues ago, where they boned. That's it. That's no easy way to say that. And he's like, man, never thought Deathstroke would be cuddling. That feels weird, and I won't be doing it anymore. And as he looks out his window, a ballistic missile is incoming, and it seemingly blows up his bedroom. And in walks Deadborn, saying like, all right, Deathstroke, get ready for the fight of your life, unless you're already dead, but then you would have been a letdown anyway. So then Deathstroke fights him and be like, oh, you come into my house and insult me? But, yeah, then Deadborn gets the upper hand and tosses him around the property a little bit. But wouldn't you know it, Zealot also managed to survive the missile hitting the bedroom and runs a motorcycle into Deadborn, allowing Deathstroke to make an escape briefly as Zealot's like, I can help. And he's like, no, I don't want you in this book anymore. He says something about his ego, but I think that's the real reason why. So anyway, cut back to now. They're still riding the motorcycles, and there are simultaneously on this highway 2 houses being moved by trailer truck, like with all of their belongings inside still in place. So Deathstroke lunges into the house. They have a brief little fight scene there. He's thrown through a window into the other house as they continue their brief little fight scene. And then Deadborn strings up Deathstroke strings up Deadborn around a passing street sign just long enough for him to pull out his sword and cut off Deadborn's arm. And he's like, ha, I'm not here to kill you, Deathstroke. I'm just here to see what your weaknesses are. And now I've got a good idea. So next time, I'll really be trying. And Deathstroke's like, he wasn't really trying. Dear Lord, I may have finally met my match. So then we get a meanwhile on Jericho, who he's like, hey, did Deadborn kill my dad? And he's like, no, he just as you requested, Deadborn merely got the information. Your dad is in perfect fighting shape. And Jericho's like, perfect. And by the way, this whole time he's just beating up random guys in a like training room. And then his mom comes in and is like, Jericho, these mind games will only anger your dad, and he's at his best when he's angry. And Jericho's like, that's the point. I want Dad to be at his best when I beat him. That way he knows he's been truly defeated, and I will lead an army against him. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Here's the thing. I like it a lot more, even just by the art, because last arc was drawn by Rob Liefeld. This arc at least looks good, so I'll give it that credit right off the bat. It does some weird things with Deathstroke's helmet, more in particular that it does like a flap lift up sort of thing, like an Iron Man style, like the front of it just lifts up. Not a fan of that, but regardless, it's okay. Writing-wise, I feel like we're just trying to ignore the entire last arc. If that makes, like, nothing in that should ever be mentioned again. So, yeah, there's that. On its own, it's fine. It's setting up a whole Jericho thing. It does feel really, really similar to the first arc, where his other son was trying to kill him and was sending people after, like, doesn't it? So, I don't know. I'm a little bit... It just seems like we're rehashing the same thing again. Hopefully we get something new. And it does say next issue we are tying into Hawkman Wanted. So there's that, I guess. But I don't know. It's just a little bit okay, I guess. It's not great. It's not blowing me away. It's the start of something. I do feel that Deathstroke's like, oh my god, this guy's not even trying and he's this good? Like, dude, he could have just been saying it. You cut off his arm. Clearly he was putting in some effort here. I don't know. It's... I feel like that first arc really is how I picture Deathstroke in my head, as this just unlovable bastard of a human being. And every arc after that's like, no, but like, he's someone that you should care about. And it's like, that's not the point. I don't want to care about him. So, yeah, overall, I'll give it a 6.5. It's okay. It's not great. It's just the next issue of Deathstroke, as it has been for quite some time. Grifter number 13, written by Rob Liefeld and Frank Tieri, art by Marat Michaels. This is something. So, the Zero issue set up that there was this guy named Warwick who helped Grifter way back in the day. And I thought that seemingly contradicted his entire backstory. But when I thought about it some more, it made even less sense. So just don't think about it. Anyway, we have Grifter. He's scaling a space station, but not just any space station. It is Stormwatch's Eye of the Storm. And he's like, boy, bet you're wondering how I got here. And then we see the flashback of him talking to Warwick, who just, I guess, contacted him at some point saying, hey, in Superman number 12, Hellspont killed all the Daemonites on Earth. Because why not? And as such, there's a conspiracy in place of how they even managed to get into positions of power in the first place. So we got to go figure out who did that. Because we can't be battling Daemonites anymore if they're all dead. So now we've pivoted. So he's like, all right, so look, we got to break into places like Argus, S.H.A.D.E, Star Labs, stuff like that. And Grifter's like, I think I know someplace better, someplace that has access to all those files, and it's all in one centralized location. And he's like, seriously, where? And he's like, you don't need to know that, but trust me, I can do it. So at this point, he's broken into the Stormwatch Eye of the Storm, and the computer system, which is run by Daemonite AI, has picked up on him. He's like, I know you're here, Cole Cash. And he's like, oh, crap. Then we cut back to how he got onto the ship, where he's partnered up with Voodoo, which I believe was teased at the end of Voodoo, maybe also partially in Grifter. Can't remember, but regardless, they're fighting through a bunch of Rent-A-Cops at Star Labs, and seemingly murdering all of them, though it does say that Grifter's shooting them only in their kneecaps, as we clearly see him shooting one, like, right where his heart is. So, iffy on that, but regardless, he breaks into Star Labs, and apparently he was looking for a teleporter in order to teleport up to the Eye of the Storm. He makes out with Voodoo for a second, and then disappears. Because I guess now they're a romantic thing. But anyway, he teleports onto the outside of the ship and starts climbing his way in. Cut back to present again. And he's basically just hacking his way through doors, trying to get to wherever it is he's going, until finally he is met by Apollo, who the ship has notified that, hey, someone is on board. So Apollo starts knocking the crap out of Grifter. Grifter turns around, sets Apollo on fire using, as far as I can tell, just a handheld flamethrower, which he says he was saving for Martian Manhunter, but hey, this works too. And then he tasers Apollo before he can get his wits back, which I guess works. So then he makes his way over to the central computer, shuts down the Daemonite AI, and it's like, all right, so who's in charge? Who has the most, like, pivotal position that they could do all of this and get all the Daemonites in there? And he comes across Amanda Waller. So he starts downloading all the files, and Midnighter shows up, realizes Apollo's been knocked out, and then he's like, wait a minute, Grifter, I killed you. That was in your own series. Like, that was a couple issues ago. And he's like, yeah, Grifter guy, he's totally dead. I'm someone else. I'm just leaving now. And he's like, no, you aren't. So they get into a fight, but this time Grifter, because of his TK telekinetic properties, he's actually able to land some hits on Midnighter, knocks him out for just long enough for him to get to his files, hops back on the teleporter, and is like, all right, bye, I'm out. And Midnighter, before he can escape, jumps through the teleporter as well. And Apollo's just left there going like, what happened? That's it. Very brief, very quick issue. I feel like Rob and Frank Tieri, like Rob Liefeld and Frank Tieri, I feel like they didn't have any say in the fact that all of the Daemonites were killed. And so they were just like, crap. That's literally the entire plot to our book. What do we do now? And they just had to pivot to this thing of like, well, how did they get into positions of power in the first place? So I don't know. It's a bit weak in that regard. Mind you, if this is the only thing that they're teaming up with Voodoo for, which again is a thing where it's like, oh, Voodoo, she's got a lot on Daemonites, but then it's like, oh, wait, they're all dead again. I really feel like Superman 12 just ruined all the plans for like everything going on here, because for the entire first year, it felt like this entire corner of the DC universe was just all Daemonite all the time, and then Scott Lobdell came in and said, now they're all dead, and it's just like, well, I guess our books are over. Jesus. So, I don't know. It's very, very weak in how they managed to pivot. In terms of the art here, not great. A lot of like very empty backgrounds and very low details on the people themselves. It just felt a bit rushed, I guess is the best way I could put it. Like there's one panel in here of Cole stepping into the teleporter in front of Voodoo, and it's literally the same exact panel 3 times, just with different color corrections and effects on it. Like, it just feels rushed. So, not a great issue overall. Definitely a change of pace, but I can't say it's for the better. I'm going to have to say this one's like a 5. It's not... It's not, in fact, you know what? I'm going 4.5 on it. It's not good. It's not a... It's genuinely like a okay. Like, what are you... This is just like completely separate from everything we were looking at before. And it's not organic. It's literally just Frankensteining the book to keep it going, and it's completely unnecessary. So 4.5. Hopefully they can limp to the finish soon enough. Suicide Squad number 13, written by Adam Glass, art by Cliff Richards. Last issue we left off with the squad being surrounded by their own, well, I say the squad, Harley and Deadshot being surrounded by their own squad, who apparently were sleeper agents for Basilisk, but then also Black Spider was just in it genuinely. And also Black Spider seemingly has kidnapped Amanda Waller's family. So, this issue picks up, and basically Black Spider's just flaunting it, like, yeah, I did it, I got you, Deadshot, ha ha ha, and Deadshot just shoots him in the head, and he later reasons, like, yeah, because of the way he stood, I figured out that it wasn't actually Black Spider. That's the only reason he didn't dodge it. So, they're running away, and they're just trying to figure out, like, alright, look, their real objective was probably Amanda Waller. They just wanted her distracted. All of this was a decoy. So, hope she's doing okay, I guess. Not really. So we cut over to Waller, and it's her grandmother who's been captured. Apparently the one who raised her. And Black Spider's got her held hostage, and Waller's like, Black Spider, you were the one? You were the secret person? It's just like, yeah, sure. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and kill your grandmother unless you unless you follow my demands or whatever like that. But then the grandmother apparently is not helpless in her own right. She tases Black Spider when he's not looking, and Amanda fires off a few shots. None of them connect because this one actually is the real Black Spider. And the grandmother immediately asks for a gun so that she can defend herself. Waller hands her one. But before they can make an escape, there's a tripwire, knocks over Amanda and the grandmother before they can get to the safe room. And Black Spider picks up the gun that Waller gave to her grandmother, puts it to Waller's head, and is just like, oh, this is purely business, nothing personal. Pulls the trigger. It was empty. There was no gun, or there were no bullets. To which Waller's like, ha, if you knew anything about guns, you'd know by the weight it wasn't loaded. And she's about to fire off a shot on Black Spider before more Basilisk soldiers break in. And so they make it into the safe room, as the grandmother's like, you gave me an empty gun? What the hell is wrong with you? So, back at the Basilisk compound, Suicide Squad is running their way down the stairs, and they're blocked by the sleeper agents, who are all standing there. They're, like, apparently trying to fight it, but they're, still programmed. So, Harley or Harleen, who may be one and the same in a throwaway line here, reasons like, okay, the only way we're going to beat him is to snap him out of it. So she sprays King Shark with a fire hose, which knocks him out of it. Deadshot then picks up a sword and cuts off Iceberg's hand, which still has ice powers in it, enough that he throws at El Diablo, and the cold is enough to snap him out of it. So just to recap, water, cold, and losing your hand. One of these things is a little bit extreme. And Iceberg himself was like, why am I missing a hand? And he's like, long story, you were hypnotized, had to snap you out of it. Anyway, we gotta kill Regulus. And it's like, why? He clearly, like, it doesn't matter. If they were just after Amanda Waller, that's on her. It's like, yeah, well, that's our job. That's why we're here. So at that point, Boomerang shows up and he's like, hey, remember how I double-crossed you? now it's a triple cross. I'm back on your side, and I got this whole army of metahumans here who also don't like being locked up and tortured by basilisks. So let's start fighting. So we cut back over to Waller and her grandmother having a heart-to-heart. Basically, the grandmother's like, hey, look, I know you hate me because way back when you were young, I held you at gunpoint and kicked you out of my house. But the reason I did that, you gotta understand, is because I didn't want you to spend the rest of your life here. You gotta get out, and you did amazing things. You became someone so incredible, and I am so very proud of you. So at that point, Grandma's marked for death. Black Spider breaks down the wall to the safe room. It comes down on the grandmother, and they get into a little fist fight, Waller and Black Spider. And Waller manages to get the upper hand just because Black Spider insists on wearing those goggles that he wears, which apparently allows for a blind spot that Amanda's able to attack him through via one of her heels, just jabs it through his eye. So Black Spider's dead, and she's taken out the rest of the Basilisk goons. Back with the Suicide Squad, the whole gang versus the entire Basilisk army, and Regulus steps up and just like, well, hey, by the way, I've also made a sleeper agent out of Harley. Harley, kill Deadshot, and starts firing off shots at Deadshot. He's moving out of the way of a couple, but then Regulus gets him in a headlock and says, like, all right, Harley, finish him off and then kill yourself. But Deadshot takes the initiative, shoots himself through his chest so that it can hit Regulus behind him, and that's enough to snap Harley out of it. And so we see everyone in the Waller house is dead except for Amanda herself. The Basilisk army is defeated, and Deadshot is seemingly dead as well. They just wrapped everything up. Nice, sweet, and with a bow. It's good. It's a solid issue. I don't think I really have anything to complain about that much, save for I don't think we ever got a clear reason as to why Black Spider is working with Basilisk. Like, he's saying it's just business, so presumably he was just paid to do this. But from the way they've set him up in all the previous issues, it seems that he is, like, really devoted to his thing of being a vigilante, but, like, the murdering kind. So, I don't know. That's the only part I really have a qualm with. Everything else is fine. It's not amazing. The whole Amanda, like, here's why Waller is why she is, because her grandmother kicked her out, and it's like, you've introduced, given the backstory to, and murdered this character all in one issue. It's hard for me to care that much. So, yeah, it just felt a bit light, I guess, is the biggest thing. With very heavy tones, very big things happening, but it didn't feel like any of it had actual stakes. Like, even now, oh, Deadshot's dead. Is he really? Is he really? So, yeah, I give it a 6. It's fine. It's not great. It just felt like there were no stakes to anything, from the sleeper agents to Amanda's grandmother. It was just kind of like, yeah, I guess that's the thing now. Legion Lost number 13, written by Tom DeFalco, art by Pete Woods. This is the start of a new arc, and we pick up on a distant solar system, some alien planet. They just hit the tribal phase of their lifestyle. They've built up little villages and whatnot, and they're using some tools and whatever. And it's like, yeah, these guys eventually would evolve into something fantastic, something that would be interstellar and something cool. But then this dude showed up and killed them all. And then we just get a dude who showed up and killed them all. And Tellus, he gets the whole feeling through the force thing. He's like, 1 billion souls had cried out and were suddenly silenced. I can feel it. And immediately everyone's like, okay, is it coming towards Earth? And he's like, I mean, it's in the direction of Earth. I don't know if it's coming to Earth. And it's like, okay, well, then we should probably deal with that. So Wildfire steps up and he's like, hey, you and Dawnstar get up there and deal with that. And he's like, psh, Dawnstar and I are fighting right now because some reason. Anyway, bye. So Wildfire just goes off on his own to find it. And then we get Chameleon Girl, who immediately was like, hey, why are we even bothering with this? Like, this isn't our thing. Shouldn't we just focus on getting Back to the Future? And Tyrok's telling her, like, we are stationed here and we're going to, defend the planet. That's what Legionnaires do. Why are you so definitely a spy? He doesn't say that, but then we see, like, in the 31st century of her being briefed by Echo, who I think was, like, that weird, like, semi-spy group thing, whatever. Anyway, it sent Chameleon Girl in, and she's like, yes, I'm spying on the Legion of Superheroes, but I want out because I fell in love with one of them, and then we broke up, and now I trust them, and I think they're good people, and I don't want to work with them anymore. And her boss is like, okay, well, here's the thing. We think that there's a rogue agent operating in the past, and we need you to go back and find out who it is so they don't mess up the whole timeline. So then we cut back to now, and Chameleon Girl's like, I'm not a spy. I don't want to do stuff. Bye. And then she just walks away. And for some reason, Tellus is not able to find out any of this, despite the fact she clearly was just thinking about it. So anyway, we cut over to Wildfire, who's like, man, I shouldn't have been such a jerk with Dawnstar, but my suit is breaking, and soon I will be nothing but a soul in the void. And then all of a sudden, the dude who killed that other planet is zooming his way, apparently light years being covered in milliseconds. And it's this whole thing of, how do I put it? He can hear the thoughts of everyone else, but he still speaks normally. So it's not quite full telepathy, but he can, like, hear everybody and then just talk to them of whatever they're saying. So he's like, oh, who are you? My name is, his name is Lord Dagor, and he rides a space dragon named Thrax, which also talks. So just, yeah. So anyway, they're like, oh, are you prey or predator? Master or minion? Shall we fight? And at this point, we cut down to New Orleans, where Gates and Timberwolf are just messing with, like, doing a team exercise or something like that. And Gates wants to hear more about Echo because he's all in on the whole government conspiracy thing. But basically, Timberwolf's like, look, I really don't know that much about it. I told you everything I do. So we cut back to the 31st century of Chameleon Girl being briefed on who they think the person is messing with time, and they figure it's either Gates, because Gates is, like, super anti-authoritarian and he might be a traitor, Wildfire, because they found an ancient relic of his face mask, but, like, shattered, so clearly he was in the past at some point, and Tyrok. And Tyrok's reason is because apparently he's revered in his culture because there's a prophecy of a guy who was born in the late 2900s but died in the early 2000s. So there's a prophecy or something, and they think it's Tyrok. So one of those guys may be the traitor who messes with the timeline back in the past. And it's Chameleon Girl's job to find out who. So we cut back to the fight between Wildfire, and he's just like, you are quite a warrior, but you keep on thinking about things that aren't the fight. That's kind of dumb. Stay in the fight, dude. So at this point, Wildfire can't help but think about how he's like, I gotta make sure he doesn't get to Earth. And then the guy's like, oh, Earth. That sounds like a cool place to conquer. Wildfire's like, damn it, why'd I do that? So then we cut to everyone's favorite character, Harvest. Yay! And he's like, hey, it's finally happening. The big thing's happening. Summon the Ravagers. We're going to go and we're going to find the thing. And all of a sudden, a time bubble appears in the middle of the desert. And Tellus is like, whoa, hey, there's a time bubble. We got to get over there. Let's go. So Gates immediately teleports all of them over there to the desert where the time bubble is. Wildfire's racing back to Earth, trying not to outpace Lord Dagor, and not doing a very good job at it. He's being beaten up pretty bad. When the team arrives at the time bubble, there's a guy standing there saying, hey, here's the deal. We have received notice in the future that there's some major thing that might be affecting the timeline right now that might destroy all of Earth. It is super important that we deal with it now. And so you guys are going to help me stop it. And immediately Gates is like, dude, we don't even know who you are. You just stepped up. And apparently his name is Captain Adam. I don't know. But Gates is like, dude, you would have had like tons of reinforcements if this were such a big deal. But it's just you showing up? I don't buy it. This is a trick. And so at that point, Wildfire crashes down like literally right next to them. And he's like, get out of here. Everyone run. And then Lord Dagor shows up and starts blowing up the planet. So, yeah. Then it says it's going to tie over with both Superboy and the Ravagers very soon. So we're getting yet another goddamn Harvest crossover. God damn it. Ugh. Okay. I don't dislike this issue independently, as long as I ignore what it means for the next couple issues. It's a good little, it bumps around. It says like, oh, here's this team member doing this, here's that team member doing that. It finally gives us something more on Chameleon Girl, which has been a point of mystery for the past couple issues. I'm okay with all of that. That's perfectly fine. Art style, also great. Villain feels a bit corny, but I feel like it's supposed to be that way, so I'm not super against it, I guess is the best way to say it. I guess that my biggest issue is really that this feels a bit fast for like a world-ending thing. Like they took so long to set up like the Harvest and that virus thing from first arc, and this one's just like, and then this guy showed up and he's going to destroy the whole planet. Okay, just deal with that. So it just felt a little bit unearned in that the big threat just came literally out of nowhere, especially when you have a team from the future that theoretically should already know about this thing, but they're explaining that it's not part of the timeline somehow. I don't get it. Regardless, it's fine. It's not great. I give it a 6, mainly just because it would get like 6.5, but that one page with Harvest, that drops it a full half point. Seriously, I'm sick of this guy. Get rid of him. The Ravagers, number 5, written by Howard Mackey, art by Ian Churchill and Julius Gopez. We left off last issue with the Ravagers arriving at the home, place, whatever, of Niles Calder, and Superboy showed up. And at this point, they all come into his facility, which he calls a safe house, and he's like, hey guys, here's the deal. You all are very poorly trained and you don't know how to do your stuff, so we're gonna train you some more. And so he opens them up into this big thing he calls the arena, where he's going to show them how to train and make sure that no one can ever hurt them again. And immediately the entire team's like, dude, this is just like nowhere. This is Harvest thing. You're literally doing the same thing we just got out of. You suck. And Caitlin Fairchild's like, Niles, seriously, did you not think that they were going to... This was always going to be a problem. Are you serious right now? And by the way, this whole time, Superboy's been like following behind Caitlin like a little sad puppy. Just like, Caitlin, hey, I really need to talk to you. I have some things I need to work through, and you're my only friend, and please, will you pay attention to me? And she's like, yeah, in a minute, just like chill. So, also, she really doesn't like being touched. So, yeah, anyway. So Niles goes off. He's like, I was just trying to help. You don't like that I'm smarter than you. You don't like that I'm better than you. Whatever. I'm out. So he just storms away. And Superboy's like, hey, maybe we could have that talk now. And he puts her hand on the shoulder again. And Caitlin loses her temper, throws him against the wall. And he's like, all right. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, see, here's the thing. In my book, I came to you because I was also losing my temper. And I needed to talk about that. So here, how about this? I need you to tell me who I am. If you want to fight me during it, so be it. And she's like, bring it. There's just a full page here of him being like, who am I? What purpose was I made for? Tell me that stuff. And they're just beating each other up throughout the whole thing. And she's just like, dude, I don't know. I showed up in order to get like info on Nowhere in order to save people. And I got myself put on your project because I cared about your well-being. I don't know anything about how you were made, why you were made, anything like that. And he's like, well, that sucks. I need some purpose. I need some reason to go on. So then we follow the rest of the team who were like, maybe we should just bail. This place kind of sucks. Let's go. But Thunder's there. And he starts having some sort of weird seizure which starts blasting his like energy powers everywhere. And Niles comes up and he's like, Dr. Fairchild to the ER quickly now, run. So the fight between Superboy and Fairchild continues on. And Fairchild basically just tells him, like, yeah, look, I can't help you. I literally can't give you what you're looking for. You're looking for a purpose. I'm what the hell's the point of our book? Beats me. So at that point, Superboy seemingly knocks her out, at least visually, but she's still talking. She's still just like, okay, well, they're calling for me in the ER, so could you get me over there? So Superboy flies her down. And we see that now they're unable to even approach the body because Thunder's just giving off that much energy. And Superboy's like, well, I mean, I can get through it. So he just zooms in there, gets to Thunder, calms him down long enough that he's unable to get his powers out. And then he, once again, falls into like a coma state or something like that. So they get him on an operating table and start operating on him. And basically, it's just a whole bunch of stuff where it's like, everyone's looking on like, I can't believe Harvest did this to us. This is their doing. How could we possibly go on? But they keep on doing operations on him. And then as they're so upset that they've gone through all of this stuff, Superboy's like, man, you guys really got it good. And Ridge is like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? We have it good. He's about to die in there. He's like, yeah, but you've got your memories. Even if they're bad, you know they're real. I wish I had real memories. And Ridge, like, punches a hole in the wall next to him, and he's like, I'm going to remember this. This is a real memory, Ridge. And Superboy just, like, pisses off for a second as Ridge is like, oh my god, that guy's such a dick. I hate him so much. So anyway, it seems like they lost Thunder. His stuff goes down, and whatever is going on in his head, they have to very quickly... It's like something that's being caused externally, so they have to disrupt whatever is triggering it. So they use a defibrillator on his brain pretty much, which shocks it out of him, starts his brain function back up, and then they're like, okay guys, here's the deal. We did a scan, and it turns out there is a little thing inside his brain that was put there by Harvest and Nowhere, and it can kill him whenever it wants. You guys also probably all have it as well, so that's an issue. But even worse than that, the little serial number on the chip said colony number 18, which implies there are at least 17 other colonies. So immediately the Ravagers are like, oh, this is the point of our book. We're going to go and save all those other colonies. Hell yeah, we finally found a purpose. So at that point, they all start getting geared up, start making their way out the door, and it's like, all right, guys, now our job is to take down all the facilities. Ravagers, engage! And also Superboy's there. So, yeah, they have a plan now, I guess. Why not? I don't dislike the idea of them going and freeing other metahumans who were trapped. Mind you, that is literally the exact same thing that early Teen Titans was, but I'm okay with it in the sense that it's a fine enough idea. They know that these things exist. They know a little bit about how to track them. It's a fine enough idea. I just really... There's no way the culling sold well enough that they think it's a good idea to revisit that, right? Like, I cannot believe that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's fine from an individual standpoint. A little bit melodramatic at points, but I feel like this book always has been. It's just like, why did this happen to us? So, yeah, I'm going to say it's a 6. Like, I can't... As much as I'm happy they finally found something to do, which, fair enough, at the end of the first arc, you get that, but I can't bring myself to care about it because it spun out of something stupid. It's continuing to go into something stupid. I'm sick of the culling, man. The Phantom Stranger, Issue 1, written by Dan DiDio, art by Brent Anderson. the Zero issue was kind of the explanation as to this, but this is also just kind of feeling like a first issue as well. So we open up in New York City. A little boy named Billy's playing with a soccer ball, kicking around the park, and he runs into the Phantom Stranger. And the stranger's like, "Hey, Billy." He's like, hi, how do you know me? He's like, "Oh, I'm a stranger." And Billy's like, "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, bye." So he takes his ball, he runs out on the road, and wouldn't you know it, hit by a car. And then we just immediately cut to his funeral. A whole procession of people there. He's still got his soccer ball on his casket. And then there's this woman who gets to the front, and he's like, "Billy, they all love you so much. I can feel it. Oh, God, this is just too much." And she runs out of the church. Phantom Stranger sees her run out. And everyone's like, "Who? Does anybody even know who she was? Anybody? Okay." So she runs out, and then there's like this weird shadow thing that comes after her. And she's like, "Oh, your shadows don't scare me, not when I can make my own." And she just lets out this huge power of the Raven. This is Raven. Her real name's Rachel, but it's Raven. So at that point, she collapses because of the huge emotional burst she just had. And Phantom Stranger steps up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm here to help you control and train your powers, I think. I'm the Phantom Stranger. I know your father was the demon Trigon, and his followers are everywhere." And Raven's like, I can't read you." He's like, "No one can. Anyway, I'm here to help you." I was like, "Okay, well, where do we go?" So they just head their way to a diner just to talk for a while. And we get the whole backstory on Raven. Her mother raised her in a place called Azarath. Her father got in there and killed everybody, and she's the only person who survived. And she's able to feel the emotions of everyone around her. And then she starts feeling like really evil presence. And she realizes that, oh, wait, we're surrounded by people who worship my father, who worship Trigon, the Church of Blood. So she immediately just runs out again. Or at least she tries to. She gets surrounded. Phantom Stranger gets in the way and says, like, "Oh, I can protect you. Here, teleport away." And so they just teleport away to Stonehenge. And apparently, Stonehenge is the place where Trigon's, like, power comes from. Like, this is the doorstep to Trigon. So she releases some energy in the form of the Raven. And then, like, Phantom Stranger just redirects it and says, like, "Hey, I don't know why we're here. I said I'd bring you to people who would train you. This is where I was led. It's all part of the magic voodoo of God." So at that point, Raven's like, "Dude, you bringing me here could bring about the end of the world if Trigon finds me." And then all of a sudden, a portal opens up and Trigon steps out. And he's like, "Hello, daughter. I was just about to send an army to destroy the world and searching for you, but now I don't have to. Come with me." And he's like, "No, stranger, please, you have to save me. We can still send him back. Our powers combined." But he's like, "Nah, this is kind of what I got to do." So all of the demons of Trigons grab onto Raven and drag her back into space hell. And then Trigon just takes a second to talk to Phantom Stranger, and he's like, "All right, well, I have her. Are you going to try to stop me?" And Stranger's like, "No." It's like, did you bring her here in order to, like, get her caught?" And he's like, "I don't think so." He's like, "Dude, what is your deal? What are you doing?" And one of his coins comes off of his necklace and, like, disappears. And Trigon's like, "Okay, is your whole thing that you have to betray as many innocent people as you have coins around your neck? And that's the thing?" And Stranger's like, "Look, I don't know what's going on, but I know that my master, God, he had a plan for all this. This had to happen in order for his plan." And Trigon's like, "Okay, well, maybe he realized I was about to destroy the planet, and he gave me my daughter back, so I didn't do that." And Stranger's like, Trigon's just like, "All right, well, this is great conversation. I'm going to leave now. Bye." So he buzzes off, and then we see Phantom Stranger make his way to an old-looking house. He walks inside of it, takes off his hat and cloak, and then he's greeted by two children who are like, "Daddy's home." And we see that his real name is Philip, and he has a wife and two kids. And he's just like, "Oh, yeah, the kids are getting ready for bed. Maybe you can go put them away." And he kisses his wife, and he's like, "Oh, Elena, my love, you have no idea the rough day at work I had." And then we see standing outside the window is Pandora, because, of course, Pandora is there. And that's that. I gotta say, Stranger has absolutely no agency. Like, in order to have a character, you need to have them want something. But literally, he's just like, we're just gonna move around here. Oh, Billy's dead. That's weird. And oh, that led me to a Raven, and I'm bringing Raven to a demon, and well, that's it for that. There's one panel in here where he just has the most, like, stoic ass face as he's just talking to Trigon. Trigon's like, dude, what is your deal? He's just like, nah. Like, there's nothing in this character. Which makes those last 2 pages the biggest surprise of, no, he has a wife and kids. And, like, this is just his day job. And I'm like, how is an endless curse a day job? Did you forget issue 0? You can't just walk away from, this is a punishment where you are not to know anybody and you have a wife and kids? I'm sure we'll get more explanation, but it genuinely feels like we just forgot the 0 issue. I don't know. Overall, though, if I take the issue independently, it's fine. It's a weird introduction to Raven, but hey, it's there. Everything else, art-wise, it looks great. I really do like the style that they got going on here. Brent Anderson, he does a cross-hatching style that I'm usually not a fan with, but it really does work for this particular sort of feel. So, yeah, I give this one... I give it a 6.5. It would be higher if it wasn't... If Stranger showed anything. Like in the 0 issue, he was like, why did you make me do this, Lord? But this issue, he's just like, yeah, teenage girl, run away. Who'da thunk it? And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this October 10th, 2012. And I don't know if it's all the ibuprofen currently coursing through my veins in order to keep me sane, but nothing really felt that big, you know? Like, there were good comics this week, there were bad comics this week, and none of it just felt, like, important. All of it just felt like we were wasting time, and I don't know, maybe we've already hit that point of the New 52. I hope not, because that is a lot earlier than I thought I would hit it, but... regardless, we will continue on with this show no matter what. Speaking of which, for those of you who don't know, there's a 5th week, and I do a full episode on 5th weeks because it's usually a lighter load, where I cover the backup stories as well. 5th week is coming earlier than it usually does, I should say, where it's coming this month, even though we just had one 2 months ago. So, going to be a little bit lighter of a load there, but I will still have a full episode's worth of content, so be sure to check that out if you're interested in any of the backups like Shazam, Batman has a few. Unknown Soldier, for like the one of you that cares about that. Anyway, let's talk about what comics are coming out next week. Next week we have 13 comics, and those are the 13th issues of Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern, New Guardians, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Blue Beetle, and Legion of Superheroes. Additionally, we have the number 1 issue of Sword of Sorcery, following Amethyst of Gemworld. Note, there was a 0 issue last month. That is critical previous reading for this issue. Go back and see that if you have not before this. You know what I mean. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Let me tell you, if you have any thoughts on any of the comics I've been reading, will be reading, or have been reading, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. That is all one word, at DC Comics Podcast. Additionally, we have a Patreon you can funnel your money into, and we promise you we'll give it back eventually. That is Mild Fuzz TV, all one word, Mild Fuzz TV. Little asterisk for the lawyers there. We will not give you back your money. We might give you something for it, but we're not giving you the money back. I feel like that joke may have gone into some legally gray territory, so I had to actually clear my debt there. Anyway, thank you very much for watching or listening, or however you consume this episode. Be sure to give it a like, a comment, a subscription, a 5-star rating, a 4-star rating if it only happens to go up to 4 stars. Go back and like all the other comments that anyone has ever given this. Nominate it for some Emmys, some Streamies, some Webbies. Just give me some praise. I could really use it. I've been having a tough time lately. But you're not here to hear that. You're here to hear about comics. So thank you very much once again. And always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.